So welcome to the September 27, 2017 Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting, and we can ask if Diane Moores, our Assistant Town Administrator, could go through the agenda.
Good evening. I'll read the agenda, and the selectmen can vote to approve or amend the agenda or to add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. We'll start off with public comment, and at 6:10, we have a posted poll hearing for Eversource for the library. At 6:30, we have a nuisance dog hearing. At 7 p.m., we have a tax classification hearing that has been continued. At 7:20, there was a Sherborn General Plan update by John Higley, who's asked to be removed from the agenda. And then at 7:45, we'll start a discussion about our special fall town meeting. We'll consider fall town meeting dates and the place, discussion of opening and closing the warrant dates for fall town meeting, a consideration of fall town meeting calendar. And then there'll be routine business by the town administrator, the selectmen. There are no minutes for approval tonight. Set the next calendar date and consideration of appointments. It'll be the Library Board of Trustees along with the selectmen. They have recommended Lisa Schwartz for a term to expire in May 2018, which is the next town election. And then an appointment to the Traffic Safety Committee that's been recommended by the Traffic Safety Committee for Douglas Peterson for a term to expire in 2020. And then the selectmen will adjourn to executive session to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel for Sean Colleen, the CM&D Director / Facilities Manager. So I need a vote to...
Any amendments to that? I think we had thought we might come out of executive session. Did anybody feel we need to amend to do that?
I thought we discussed it, but decided...
I didn't discuss anything. I don't think we had anything at the meeting.
I thought David suggested...
Not doing that?
Not doing that.
Okay, fine. That's fine. So we can remove Higley from the agenda, John Higley, Planning Board Chair. I just want to say something, Diane. You talked about the tax classification hearing continued, just so people maybe who are watching understand, it's continued to tonight from last
From September,
week.
well, it was September 12th
Right,
was the
not
original.
that we're going to continue it further tonight,
And
but
then it was
we're hoping to
continued, and
conclude it
this is
tonight.
the last
Yeah.
continuation.
We're all
yes.
set to conclude that, right?
Yes, we are.
Good, okay. Anybody want to make a motion? Anybody have any more amendments or comments on this? Anybody want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right. Sean moves, Paul second, all in favor? Aye, okay, great. Now we have public comment. Steve Leahy has asked to be heard.
Good evening, all. Stephen Leahy, 12 Woodland Street. I just want to make a public comment on the continued failure of the town to vote to move to a quarterly tax billing system. In the, I believe this has been voted down by the town member a number of times, and what I've got is really an example of how this it's kind of costing town taxpayers cash out of our wallets. There is likely to be a significant return of funds from the regional school district, from some funds unused for the 2017 fiscal year that's coming back to the town. The amount that's coming back to the town, I believe by my estimates, is going to be approximately $120,000 this year. By state law, when the regional school district returns those funds to the town has to drop the tax rate to offset the funds that are being essentially given back to the town. In this case, the approximate $120,000 that will be coming back, and looking at the new assessment values and the tax rates that we have, is going to cost us on our tax rate about 9 cents, which may not be significant in the grand scheme of things, but to me, anytime we can drop the tax rate, which I feel is a barrier to some of the home value growth in this town, which I think we all desperately need, it would be a good thing to do. So I will say there's a caveat that in the most recent election, where this vote to go to quarterly billing was shot down once again, it would not have had an effect on this particular year. That vote was to go into effect the following fiscal year. However, my point is that there's an unforeseen example of how the town could have benefited significantly, $120,000, right, out of our pockets by having moved to a quarterly tax billing system. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And then we have Sean Colleen has asked to be heard through public comment. Bill?
I'm not going to get up, but I just wanted to acknowledge that although I'm here, it is my son's birthday. Chandler's turning 9 today, and I just wanted to wish him a happy birthday. Hopefully he's watching.
You said hopefully he's spending his 9th birthday watching the Sherborn Board of
Yes.
Selectmen on television? Okay.
Why wouldn't he be?
Doesn't he every night?
I don't know. Okay, so,
Rerun.
If not, I'll make him watch the rerun.
all right.
Making a motion for us to sing happy birthday to him? I hope not.
Okay, great. So now we have a poll hearing for Eversource. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 27, 2017, at 6:10 PM at Town Hall, 19 Washington Street, regarding a petition by NStar Electric doing business as Eversource Energy to erect or construct in a location for such a line of wires, pole, and other fixtures, including anchors and guys, as may be necessary to sustain or protect the wires of the line. Said pole to be located on Sanger Street, southwest side, approximately 289 feet southeast of Washington Street. And we've had materials provided, and I guess we've got a representative from Eversource here.
Yes.
Very good.
Christine Crosby, Eversource Energy.
Hi, Christine.
And we are requesting a new location of a pole 21/3. And the purpose of that would be to provide the new primary overhead to underground feed to the new pad mount transformer location that's being relocated due to the renovations for the library.
There's nobody from the library here.
Okay.
Jane, didn't the library
They said they were coming.
say they were going to be here?
Okay, well,
So, late today, I got an email back from one of the engineers from RDK on the design side of the library that they were going back to Eversource in reference to one of my questions, which was why they can't use the pole that's existing on the library side. So that puts us at a little crossroads here, because if they're quoting another option, we're obviously not going to approve this poll. I don't want to cause a delay in the library project. I can't imagine that they're in a position where this is going to delay the site work much.
Sean, can you explain what you're talking about? Which pole would they
So
want to
if
use?
you're looking at this map,
Yes, I'm looking at the
this
map.
is the pole that's referenced in this
Up here.
picture.
Let's see. Okay. So that's the.
The pole
this is
currently
the-
feeding is leaning over, and
This is the new pole.
and so they're gonna add a new pole. They're proposing on the library side.
Okay.
So you'd drive by the parking, you'd drive by the mailboxes, and then there'd be a pole on the lawn. There's some pretty significant physical constraints to where that pole could be because of the gas line, the sewer line, the ledge that's on that hill.
So what are you recommending?
Well, I was, for 2 weeks, I've been going back and forth trying to get someone to convince me that that's a good idea, and I'm not sure anyone's done that.
What's the alternative? Just replace the pole that's
Well-
damaged now in the current location?
That doesn't do enough, apparently, because there's 2 risers on that pole. In other words, that pole feeds the community center and the library. But there's a pole in the lawn further up Sanger that feeds all of these poles.
21?
21-1,
One?
which is already there, and nobody's told me why they can't just do underground from there.
From the first pole on Sanger Street,
21-1, yeah.
and I believe that that's on the same side of the street as the library
Yes.
as well, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about maybe an underground feed from that pole to the library?
Yeah, they could put the riser on that. There's a transformer on that. That's what steps the primary down for the community center. But I would guess they could put a set of primary switches on that, drop down, and it's more trenching. But
Yes, it would be a
I know
yeah.
what they're gonna be trenching through to get in from Sanger Street, and it's not gonna be pretty anyway, so. And from this seat up here, I'm not sure I compelled to care how far they have to trench. We're gonna be stuck with a pole that I don't think is in a very safe spot.
You're talking about the proposed pole?
If we do the proposed pole,
Yeah.
It's very close to the road
It's,
there.
yeah. it
it's
seems-
gonna have to be really close to the road.
Spot,
It's on
yeah.
a tough, steep slope. The snowbanks roll off that road, that hill anyway. then we're gonna have wires that leave one side of Sanger, cross the street, and come across the street again. For one set of primaries that we could have just trenched in the first place.
Sean, is the proposed new pole location directly across in that little parking area beneath the community center? How far down Sanger is it?
It's not very far.
Because it looks like there's a little cut in, and I'm guessing
There's a
that's that
couple
little
of
parking
stakes
area.
out there, if you had driven by, there was a couple of stakes there.
Okay.
They're, I know they're very concerned about the root systems of the couple of trees that are there.
Well, could I suggest, just as a procedural matter, this is like a public hearing, so before we have much more discussion up here, maybe we should see if there's anybody who wants to comment on the pole location. And if not, then kind of bring it back to
We have
the
any
board.
poll location people out there? Selectman Durensis is looking for comments on the poll from anybody out there? All right, looks like we don't have any.
Okay, so if it's back to the board, is there a way, I like everything you said, but I don't want to hold up the library. Is there a way to approve this location if necessary, but to see if some other solution can be obtained? The problem is we have no other solution before us
I know.
to approve.
Well, we wouldn't have to approve it if there was another solution.
If it's underground.
There wouldn't be an added pole.
If it's going to be a conduit, they still have to get our permission for a conduit.
Not if it's not in the right of way.
See,
It's going to be on our property.
It's part of the library project. It would be all part of the library project. I don't think we're approving individual site changes to the library project.
I don't know. I'm not sure why the planning board didn't hit this up before in the design.
Well, maybe they didn't know
That's
the
not for us,
pole was
right.
falling down, I don't know.
So the trenching.
I would be willing to have some kind of motion that would allow us to approve it.
Just
No
in-
other options, but simply saying there's not another option doesn't really suffice, because I was told that 2 weeks ago, and then as of today, they said they're investigating, they're gonna go back to Eversource and have engineering quote that.
I did speak with Eversource Engineering, and they did say that they would be glad to meet, have a site visit, and go over any other options that
Okay.
could be there. I don't know if you might want to continue the hearing, and then, in the meantime, try to see if we can come up with a different option, and
Yeah,
That's an idea.
I was also led to believe that the library was gonna be here.
Yeah, although I
Okay,
think
okay.
even if they were here, I'm not sure we would have resolved this tonight,
No,
because we're
they-
not gonna all go tromping out there and look at the
No.
the
I-
poll,
I know.
so I'd be willing to have it continued. I just don't feel like we're ready to make a decision.
We're not.
You okay with continuing?
Yeah.
So can I move to continue?
Please.
I just,
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
okay, and I'll work with Ms. Guthrie,
Sure.
make, I'll...
Make arrangements with library, you mean?
Yeah, to make arrangements for, and get in touch with other Eversource people as well, but is there somebody on the construction team that I should get in touch with, or maybe Jean would know that?
Gene, you would know
You
that,
would,
right?
because originally they were the original contact.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll come up with the
Peter
names,
Byerly, I
of
think.
the people that need to get involved, and,
So is this a next meeting thing, or you think maybe a month from now? When do you think this will be?
I don't know, I'll do as soon as I get back into the office tomorrow. I've already explained the situation to engineering anyway, because I did get an email, and they explained to me that they don't really like to put more than one, if a pole has a primary riser on it, they don't like to put multiple risers on it, and this particular pole does have multiple risers on it. So their thought was to separate that primary riser out and have a dedicated pole just for the new library, because the transformer on private property is being moved as well. That could be part of the problem too, as far as the pole leaning, because it is a dead-end pole, there's no other pole on the opposite side
Right.
to,
But that would be coming down
separate-
either way,
Yeah.
right?
But we are getting in touch with Verizon, because Verizon sets the poles in Sherborn, and we could set a different type of a pole to try to get that, that concern with the leaning, addressed. So that's like two separate things, the pole that's leaning, and then the issue is how, what
Yeah.
kind of service to the
Okay.
library.
All right, there were also trees that have to come down. I'm surprised the room wasn't packed for that, but it did look like there were a couple of trees coming down. All right,
No,
thank you.
there's not, there weren't with this,
Not with this one?
with this option, it was,
Oh, well, it says here there were a couple of trees that would have to come down. Right, but anyway, so we've continued this. We need a date certain to continue it since it's a noticed hearing, though. Do we have another meeting set yet, Diane?
No, we don't.
So can we set a meeting now so we at least know a date to continue this to? So is October 12th a date that's 2 Thursdays from now?
As I think I mentioned, almost every night I'm doing basically a trial.
2 Wednesdays from now? You want to do October 11th? That might work better for me.
That works for me.
All right, let's do,
I have the 11th, I have one of the trial days is the 11th. Sorry. The 12th might be okay.
yeah, I'm not sure I can do the 12th, Paul. We started on this Wednesday schedule.
How about the 18th?
Well, now we're 3 weeks out, that's too long.
I was just picking a Wednesday.
Yeah, no, I get it. All right, well, you want to do we need to meet next week, Diane? We got something coming up? I think we should do the,
The 5th, I'm available the 5th.
well, that's too soon. That's not, Diane just said we don't have to meet next week. It sounds like you're kind of blocked that week, Paul.
Well, it's just like this hearing goes on and on and on. There are multiple parties. It's an auditorium filled with people, angry people.
So is this.
Got angry telephone poles.
They're not angry yet, but if we can't schedule a meeting, they will be.
You might like a break.
I don't think we're going to have a lot on anyway in 2 weeks, are we, Diane? Let's for now, Paul, we're going to schedule it for the 11th of October, and if stuff comes on, we can maybe juggle agendas, but I don't know if you care about being here for the resolution of this poll hearing, which at this point is the only thing on the agenda, I think.
Yeah, but other things might arise.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We can figure out how to move them around. I don't know how else to solve that. We've got to meet 2 weeks from
How
now.
about the
I have
10th?
to open the warrant pretty soon.
How about the
We've got to
10th?
open a warrant. I could meet the 10th if people want to do the 10th. It's the day after the long weekend, but that's fine. People free on the 10th?
I'm free from 6:30 on. 6 would be a tough.
Yeah, well, all meetings are going to be 6:30 from now on, I think.
We had,
All right, so does that work for you, Sean?
That'd be terrific.
I have no idea where we are.
The traffic's too much for you? Yeah, on the 10th, which is a Tuesday.
I think it's fine.
Okay, good. Paul, that works for you?
Yes.
Chuck, that works for you? Okay, let's set that at the 10th. So we'll continue this poll hearing till 6:45 on Tuesday, the 10th. Thank you. And if you don't have it worked out by then, just tell Jeannie and we'll take it off the
Okay.
agenda.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Hang on, I want to make sure this gets in my calendar. All right, so next we have a nuisance dog hearing.
we're a few minutes early.
We're a few minutes early on that one. Okay, so is there anything else? We have minutes to go through here, Diane?
Not tonight.
No minutes. Do you want to do an appointment? We can do an
Sure.
appointment of traffic safety. The library trustees, I think, are supposed to be here to meet with
Yes.
us on that one, right?
Yes, they
But
are.
we can do the traffic safety appointment. Douglas Peterson's been
Who's
Nominated.
Whose seat he's taking on traffic safety?
I don't know.
Who's the what, I'm sorry?
Whose seat he's taking on?
Is there an opening on traffic safety? That's the question.
Yep.
Jim
Susan.
Campbell?
Do you know who,
I think it was
Whose
Jim
seat that
Campbell,
is?
they said.
for traffic safety? Was it Kristen's?
It's been vacant for quite a while.
So it's not Jim Campbell. Somebody said it was Jim Campbell's seat.
Oh, he wasn't on traffic safety.
All right, good.
He was on
Well-
public safety.
There you go. He's on public safety.
Wrong safety.
Wrong safety, Sean says.
All right, so I move to
All right.
appoint Douglas Peterson to traffic safety for a term to expire June 15, 2020, as recommended by the Traffic Safety Committee.
Been moved, we have a second on that.
I'll reluctantly second it, because that's the first time I've heard the 2020 date. It just seems so
So far away.
far away.
All right,
Second.
so moved and seconded to have Liz Peterson nominated to traffic safety. Anybody have any comments on this?
But I do have something to let you know.
Diane, you got something to add?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I heard from the library, they're going to be a few minutes late tonight.
All right, well, I mean, if we're in executive session, then we probably would just have to continue it until, now we've at least got a hearing on the 11th. And we'll want them there for the poll discussion anyway, so maybe that's going to work out fine.
Okay.
I don't know. All right, so thanks to Doug Peterson. We should vote on that. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye, okay, thanks to Doug Peterson for agreeing to serve on traffic safety.
Nice, but then when this came off.
All right, we've got a minute. I can read the notice. Do we have a notice, Diane?
Yeah, it's in the packet. Before we move on from Doug Peterson,
Here we go.
the packet indicated that he's
Got
a,
it.
It's right in your packet, do you
Yep.
see it?
Yep.
He's an engineer.
he's a practicing professional engineer managing bridge and roadway projects, so
That's great.
that's wonderful.
Okay, good. This was a notice of a dangerous dog hearing, dangerous or nuisance dog hearing, excuse me, on Wednesday, September 27, 2017, at 6:30 PM in Sherborn Town Hall, Room 204A, located at 19 Washington Street, Sherborn, Massachusetts. The Board of Selectmen, acting as hearing authority pursuant to Chapter 140, Section 157, will hold a public hearing to determine whether two dogs owned and/or kept by, and this is addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Sutter, in the town of Sherborn are nuisance dogs, as that term is defined in General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 136A. So there's a public hearing. Anybody who wants to speak at the hearing will swear them in when they start to speak. We've got Sergeant Tedstone here for the complaint. Basically, was the one who referred it to us. And I don't know if anybody's here from the Sutter family. Is anybody?
No, but I did speak to them, and she told me she was planning on coming.
Okay, all right, well, why don't you think, is she
Well-
planning on coming tonight, Diane?
Excuse me?
You said she is planning on coming
She
tonight?
said she was going to try and come tonight.
Well, then I'm gonna.
Maybe we should hold, maybe we
object,
should
yeah.
hold back a little bit until she gets here, if that's all right, if you don't mind cooling for a couple of minutes.
Just basic fairness and due
Yeah,
process to
yeah.
let her hear what's going on rather than start without her.
Yeah, no, that's right. All right, what else can we do?
What about the
Tax
tax?
classification hearing, that's continued at 7 o'clock, we can't do that now.
Let's do fall town meeting.
What about the fall special town meeting dates and place?
We can do that if folks want to do that. You want to do that, and then we'll call back? All right.
Just open meeting. You just open it.
I did, so why don't you vote to suspend the hearing? Can we take a motion to suspend the hearing until the complainant shows up?
Maybe we don't need to.
Oh, we stalled long enough. Okay, good enough. Are you the suitors?
Yes.
Great, good. Okay, well, so we just opened the hearing. Nobody said anything. Sergeant Tedstone's going to speak, and then we'll hear from you, if that's okay?
We read the notice, but wanted to wait till you arrived, so.
And before you testify, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
Okay, so somewhere on or around May 23rd, we began receiving complaints from neighbors regarding barking dogs and roaming or missing dogs. Between the 23rd of May and the 27th of August, there were approximately 14 police interactions with the Sutter's dogs. Essentially, the dogs barking, keeping neighbors up, and they would call and complain. So it persisted for a couple months, and then on, I believe it was August 27th, I requested the nuisance dog hearing based on the complaints that we received from neighbors and residents.
Okay. And were these complaints, these were all at night? These relate to interruptions in sleep and things like that, or were there daytime complaints also?
They weren't all interrupting sleep. There were some evening calls as well.
Okay.
I believe there were daytime calls as well. It was primarily at night in terms of barking complaints that that I remember, but there were certainly times during the day that we received calls as well.
Okay. And are these dogs confined on the property, or they roam on other properties, do you know? Do you hear anything about that?
We've received several calls about them roaming and running through other areas of town.
Did you conduct an investigation?
Yes, I basically just what I summarized. I compiled the calls. I spoke with them about the process and tried to mediate and explain to them that the residents and the neighbors were calling and complaining, and we were looking to try to stop the dogs from barking. And essentially I was told that the dogs are kind of doing their job and they're protecting the livestock, and they would try to reduce the amount of barking, but it doesn't really seem that the barking has stopped. It's certainly continued since my conversation with the Sutters.
Okay. Any more questions for Sergeant Tedstone at this point? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We can hear from, if anybody else wants to speak, you can go up and introduce yourself, either or both of you, if you want. Very good, thanks. And then we'll swear you in. You're Mr. Sutter?
Yes,
Very good. Bruce Sutter, could you just raise your hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good, thank you. So you've heard the complaint, and you probably have something to add to that, so we'd like to hear from you.
Sure. Certainly don't disagree that these complaints were happening. As was mentioned, these are dogs that we have on property to protect our livestock. They're livestock guardian dogs. We did rescue them, so there was another owner that was looking to get rid of them because they were moving, and we were having issues with a lot of our chickens and ducks and other livestock being killed by predators, and we've tried many different things, including getting llamas and turkeys, and this seemed like the next logical step. They are contained, or we attempted to contain them within about an acre of fenced paddock area, and they certainly did escape a lot. They found ways to get through our fencing, and we continuously worked to try to repair that fencing and close up the areas they were getting out. And it's probably been at least a month or longer since they've actually found a way to get out of the fenced area. So I feel like we've been successful there. And as far as the barking complaints, I took the initial approach that if they were barking and they woke me up at night, I would certainly go out and put them in the barn. And that, obviously, that approach didn't work so well. There were times where I was traveling and they weren't put away. So about 2 weeks ago, we just started closing them up at night when we do the rest of the livestock, putting them in the barn at, just after dusk, certainly before 10 o'clock at night. And I let them out in the morning at somewhere around 7 a.m. And I think you'll find that there haven't been any complaints in the last 2 weeks as a result of us doing that, and we'll continue to do that into the future. Close them up at night, make sure they're in the barn. They aren't able to protect the livestock by doing that, but I do agree that we don't want to keep anybody up at night, and so that's the right approach, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, anybody up here have questions for Mr. Sutter?
There was a reference in one of the reports that the dogs aren't happy being in the barn and would bark inside the barn to get out. Have they gotten used to being in the barn at this point, or do they bark all
absolutely.
night?
Like at night, if they hear odd noises, they will bark because they're bred to protect the livestock against predators. So if they hear some odd noise, I think it's typical that they would bark, but I don't think it's been excessive, and they seem to be used to it. Yeah.
How far is the place where the dogs are from the nearest house?
I would say the barn is probably a few hundred feet from the nearest house, and there's a row of trees in between that screens the two properties.
Thank you.
Anybody else up here have any questions? Is there anybody else in the audience who wants to speak on this? Any neighbors or anybody else? No? It's a public hearing, so Susan, you have a question, or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was distracted back here. As far as the livestock, I heard chickens and ducks. I only asked because it's,
So I think the question is, what kind of livestock are these dogs protecting?
So there are chickens and ducks. We also have turkeys and alpacas, 3 of them, llamas, there's a couple of those, and several goats.
if I may,
Do you want to, you have evidence relevant to the hearing, or?
as far as a guardian dog, I've got history growing up with them on the farms and stuff. A guardian dog actually lives in the barn with the livestock. It becomes part of the herd of the livestock.
So if you're going to testify, Susan, we got to put you under oath and, no? Okay. Any other comments, questions from anybody? You have anything more you want to say, Mr. Sutter, Mrs.
No, I
Sutter,
think
you want to
that
say
was
anything?
it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming in. I guess we take it back up here.
Could I ask Sergeant Testone a question?
okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the question I wanted to ask too. Go ahead. You want to ask him whether there have been any complaints in the last couple of weeks?
Yes, the statement was made, this was no complaints. The lawyers here, great minds think the same way. I'll defer to Attorney Young.
What was the date of the last complaint about the dogs? And specifically complaints about the dogs barking in the barn?
The last date of the complaint was
Yeah.
September 11th. We had 2 complaints on that date.
So 16 days ago.
4:06 in the morning and then 7:22 at night.
Well, my instinct here is that the neighbors aren't here. And if they were that upset about this for its current status, they would be here and they'd be demanding relief. And on the testimony that you've accepted responsibility to be a good neighbor, for which it's very much appreciated that you realize that you live in a community and that people are affected. The fact that you have taken these steps, and on your representation that the problem seems to be resolved, and on the evidence we just heard from the animal control officer that there's been no complaints in 16 days, I'm willing to let this go for the time being and see if there's another incident.
So there is a letter from neighbor Deborah Doucette, an email to Diane, and that's dated September 11th. And it does, have you seen this email or not? Diane, do you have a copy of that you could give to
I can give it to
the Sutters? And I don't know if Sergeant Tedstone has seen it or not. But it just to summarize, this is Doucette, is at 133 Nason Hill Road, which must be across the street. And she is complaining about all-night barking of the 2 dogs, but also even after they moved to the barn, she describes them barking loudly and nonstop in frustration every night. And then she describes some incidents where the dogs have come to her yard, and she describes the dogs as nice dogs. This is, this is another piece of evidence. I guess it goes, Paul, to your comment that the neighbors didn't come out. There was at least one neighbor who sent a letter. It is September 11th, which was the date that Sergeant Tedstone said was the last complaint also.
Well, I'm not discounting that. I think what I'm saying is it's almost like continuing this thing without a finding, if you will. There's this process in the courts where somebody comes in with a problem. The judges sometimes continue things without a finding to say if nothing happens within a certain period of time, then the complaint will be dismissed, but if something happens within that period of time, then action will be taken. So I'm kind of groping towards that kind of thing, that we give them an opportunity to fix the situation. It looks like they're making an effort. And if they don't fix the situation, then have them all back and then take action.
So we've done that recently with at least one other dog hearing. I mean, I would propose if we did that we set an actual date to have a revisit of this, just to assess progress and ask if Sergeant Ted Stone could give us a report then, whether there had been any more complaints, et cetera. I would push it out, I mean, I think probably a couple months, 2-3 months.
Yep.
Is that what you're thinking, too?
3 months, yeah.
Yeah, 3
The
months.
dogs are getting acclimated.
Yeah, obviously, if something comes up before then we can, schedule a new hearing, but is that okay for you? Okay. It sounds like it's not as urgent an issue as it was, and it sounds like they've taken some steps and they're considerate to their neighbors like that. So we will schedule this, we'll continue this until what month is it now? It's
September
still
27th.
September? Yeah, so we're not going to schedule it, we'll schedule it for our first January meeting. How's that, Diane?
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
I would do it Christmas Eve, but that's fine.
It's fine, Chuck.
Christmas Day.
Yes, please, yep.
Reading this email, and it's pretty harsh. She's never spoken to us.
Okay.
And if she felt this strongly, that we were not caring well for the dogs and all of this, I would think she would come to us. But she hasn't, so I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, it does look like there's a little, maybe some frustration or something in this email. I mean, maybe between now and January, if you could find a way to talk with her and see if you work things out, that would be good.
But she didn't realize we were going through trying to figure out how to keep them confined. And
Right.
spending hours and hours and hours on, there's two sides.
Sure.
Which she wasn't aware of.
Yeah, and I think we appreciate that, and that's that's why we want to give you a chance on seeing if this fix works for a longer period of time. So does anybody want to make a motion to continue this until our first January meeting? Paul?
So moved.
Second on that?
I think you should second it.
All in favor? I heard the word second. Is that what you were doing? Very good. Thank you. Thanks very much.
It's like Congress.
Selective hearing.
Okay, that was the dog hearing. We still got a little time to kill before the tax classification hearing. Fall town meeting, we could start talking about that. Do you have some, we had talked about it I thought it was December 6th or 7th?
6th or 7th.
And then I think one of them was a date that one of the members of the board was not able to attend. But I think the planning board was comfortable with those dates.
What about facilities?
And Diane checked, and I think Pine Hill is available on all those days, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So why not the 6th?
The 6th of December, is everybody okay with that as a date? Okay, and I don't see Steve here. I'm hoping advisory is okay with that.
They just started a meeting.
Okay, all right.
No, they didn't start yet.
They didn't? Gene, can you just check and make sure we've got a chance of getting advisory? I think
they said
George said the last time that he was okay with that
I
date.
thought so.
but
Any days. They'll play it safe to do the 7th. It gives them another day
I
to,
think the 6th is fine. It was more, it's not another day, it's more it was just more a question if there was something else that they had to do that day or something. We don't want to have a meeting when somebody can't be there if possible. So Diane, Pine Hill School is available on December 6th, is that what you said?
Yes, 5th, 6th, and 7th.
All right, and what time do we typically start these, 7 o'clock?
7 p.m.
Yep, okay. That's such a civilized hour.
Can I take a motion to take that?
Yeah, do we have a motion to
I
set?
move to schedule the special town meeting to be held at Pine Hill on December 6th, beginning at 7 PM.
Okay, so we set it for December 6th at 7 PM. So what are the warrant dates for that, David or Diane? Do you have that figured out?
I mean, we have to set the open and close of the warrant.
That's what I'm saying.
Jeannie, I didn't bring that timeline list that we did. Can you go make copies of that?
Well, why not vote on the motion that's
Yeah,
pending? and then-
we can vote on the date. So we've got a motion pending for the 6th of Pine Hill. All in
I don't
favor?
think so, I haven't heard a second.
Oh, okay, I'll second it. All in favor? Yeah, okay, good, great. Well, we don't have the calendar, and we're killing time until 7 o'clock, so we can hear from Wendy.
What's the next item?
Well, we got the
Opening,
library
closing
trustees
warrant.
coming in not till 8:30, that's late.
Did we set the date for the election?
We didn't. I don't think it's on our agenda either.
So we called an election without a date? Or are we waiting for the town clerk to tell us?
Thank you.
You need like 64 days.
Yeah, I mean, I think last time when we talked about it, it got us pretty late in December, but, okay, so, David, have you worked this all out? Is that,
With the special town meeting?
yeah,
I didn't know how long you wanted to leave the warrant open. That was the
I got you, okay.
problem. So, I mean, you can open and close it in the same night, or you can open it one night and close it at the next meeting. So if your next meeting is, what is it,
Our next meeting is,
11th?
no, our next meeting is
That's
October the
10th.
10th, which is a Tuesday. We could
You could go the
we
following
could open it
meeting.
then and then close it the following Monday or something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you don't have to close it in a meeting. You can just vote to
Yeah,
close
or we
it.
could close at the end of that week. I mean, I don't know that we need to have it open for a long time.
Right. Yeah, it'd probably be better on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, that's what I think. Friday the 13th is a great day. Nothing wrong with that day. Okay. So open on the 10th and close on the 13th. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, when would be the advisory hearing?
The advisory hearing is November 8th, okay. What's the deadline to file notice of intent to submit articles, David? I mean, we could accept those until the 10th, right?
Yeah, that's-
So now, basically, now until the 10th.
Yeah.
And of course, if somebody doesn't want to file a notice of intent, they'll still submit the article if they get signatures.
It's it's an odd step. in the
It's a what?
process. It's an odd step in the process. mean,
I think it works for annual town meeting because there's just so
Right.
many things on the table, but here
Right.
it's pretty discreet. But maybe there's somebody out there like, we talked last week about potentially reconvening a government task force.
so they can at least give us a notice of intent.
They give us
as
a notice of
opposed to-
intent on what they're thinking about. Yeah, that would be good.
Is there a government task force?
Hmm?
Is there a government task force?
No. No, it was dissolved.
Okay.
So the thought was to reconstitute them?
There was a proposal to do that from a citizen who spoke at our, one of our hearings, Frank Jenkins.
Frank Jenkins suggested a governance task force to review the recommendations of the Collins Institute report and
Okay, what's the advisory hearing about?
DOR report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
They're pushing.
All right, so the way this looks, if everybody's okay with this, I'll read it through and then we can take a motion. The way the calendar would look is for a December 6th town meeting, we would open the warrant on October 10th. October 10th would also be the deadline to file notices of intent to submit proposed warrant articles, and you could start doing that at any time now. Close the warrant on October 13th at 5 PM. And then on or before November 2nd, there would be mailed notice of advisory committee hearing, and there would be posted notice of advisory committee hearing. So that's Oh, and we'd have to post the warrant for the special town meeting on or before November 21st, and mail the advisory committee report on or before November 29th. Do those move by a day, David, because we're on the 6th instead of the 5th?
Yeah,
Okay, so on or before the 22nd of November to post the warrant, on or before the 30th of November to mail the advisory committee report. Okay? Is everyone okay with those dates? Yes, Jean? Sure.
Friday, if the 13th is a Friday, town hall does close at 1:00.
Okay. Let's do it at noon. Closing at 12 noon. Yep, 12 noon on the 13th. Do we have a motion and a second on that?
I'd move to schedule a special town meeting for December 6, 2017, with October 10th as the date to file notices of intent, and the closure of the notice of intent period would be on October the 13th at noon.
I think we're going to say we're closing the warrant on October 13th, and we're opening the warrant on October 10th.
Okay, open the warrant on the 10th, close it on the 13th, and posting the warrant for the special town meeting on November 22nd, and mailing the advisory committee report on November 30th.
Great.
Has anybody checked with advisory to make sure?
yeah.
Jean checked.
By the 30th?
Jeannie checked.
Jean checked.
Jeannie did.
Not for the date of the special time, but for the 30th mailing their report to the voters? Are they okay with that?
What's that?
The notice for the public hearing for the advisory.
Has to be at least a week ahead.
5 days before.
Yeah, 5 days before.
5 days before November 8th. And then the advisory committee report would have to be mailed by November 22nd. It has to be in the households 5 days prior.
So that's the 30th, I think, 5 days prior to the 6th.
Yeah, I'm not asking
So-
what the dates have.
Oh, mailed by the 22nd?
I'm just asking, has anybody talked to advisory about those particular dates?
November 8th, they told me that that's when they were going to have their hearing, is November 8th. It's either going to be October 25th or November 8th.
No, I'm not asking about the hearing.
If their hearing is
Well,
on
if
the
they set that
8th,
date, then they must know that they can make all the other dates associated with that.
There's a proposal to have the 30th,
They have the timeline.
Yeah.
and they're okay with the 30th getting their report out.
if you set the 6th, they have to be. They have to get it out.
Yep, okay.
It's going to go,
Let's just not miss any deadlines, okay? Somebody's got to be in charge of being of all the dates and
I'll reach
everything.
out to George after
Yeah,
this
okay,
meeting.
all right, but somebody should keep a master calendar, because this is kind of,
This isn't, yeah.
kind
I'll
of
do this
cryptic here to
over.
me even.
I just want to work collaboratively with advisory and all other boards and committees, and that involves at least communicating specific dates.
I think Jeannie's telling you, Paul, she did that and they were fine with the dates.
Okay, that's
And
what I
I'll
was
follow
trying to
up
get.
as well.
and town meeting's going to be 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
PM.
All right, so all in favor of Chuck's motion? Great, okay, so that's done. 4 more minutes?
4 more minutes.
Paul, you should have filibustered longer.
On which?
Let's see. This is the tax hearing.
Want to do selectmen reports?
If you want to, yes, we could do that.
I do not have a report.
Could you speak a little slower?
Can I
Speak slower.
do the administrator report?
Yeah, go ahead, David, please.
We have an item to sign for the building commissioner. That's just a form to go to the
Just
state.
make some.
Yeah, it has to be signed by the chair. And then take this opportunity just to introduce Heidi Doyle's in the audience. She's just observing. She's the seasonal temp part-time assistant in the finance office that has started. Hopefully, at some point, we can get her interviewed in an open meeting and appointed for treasurer. So she is right here. She just happened
Okay,
to be at the
welcome.
meeting. I didn't
Hello.
expect her. So you'll see her face coming around.
Okay, very good, thank you. 2 more minutes. Anybody else have a report? No?
Let's go into executive session.
I was going to say it's apple season, and I had a apple each of the last several days from Douse's Orchard. They're delicious, and I would encourage everyone to patronize their local apple stand or farm stand in Sherborn.
2 more minutes.
Keep going, Mike.
That was,
You're on a roll. Keep
that
going.
was it. No,
How many apples did you eat?
I've had plenty of apples. Who came out, Susan?
The ladies from the ladies and gentlemen from the Council on Aging, we had a field trip the other day. I don't know if you saw a little blurb in the paper, we had a field trip to the Central Cemetery and up by Village Way. And they helped and watched an unveiling of a headstone that's been buried for about 100 years.
And you found this headstone?
I found
Excellent.
the headstone a year ago and we unveiled it.
Unveiled of you said 300-year-old headstone? That had been buried for 100 years?
Died in 1718.
Wow, okay.
Oh, congratulations.
That's great.
For finding that.
Does that buy you some time?
Great.
You got one more
That
minute.
was perfect. I think we're pretty close. Yeah, Wendy's going to get up there. Okay, good. So just so folks understand, this is a continuation of the tax classification hearing. Wendy gave us a full presentation at the hearing a week ago, or I think it was last Thursday. Nothing has changed from her first presentation, and we need to eventually take a vote, but we'll take public comment in 30 seconds if there is any. And then we're going to need to take a vote on whether to adopt a single or a split tax rate, whether to approve residential exemptions and small commercial exemptions in accordance with our obligations. We can do this now, and we couldn't do it last week because the tax rate has been certified by Department of Revenue. Is that right?
We have final certification.
Final certification. Okay, that's great. And that was a delays through no fault of Wendy or anybody in this room, just difficult to get things done.
Can we rejoice?
It's the tax values. Yeah, tax values, not the tax rate. Tax rate derives from the tax values and the budget. Okay? That good, Nancy? More accurate? Okay, yeah, okay. So tax valuation, very good. That was certified. And it's now 7 o'clock. We can conclude this. Does anybody have any comments on whether we should set a single tax rate or a split rate, or with respect to the residential exemption or the small commercial exemption? No? Wendy, do you have anything to lead us through on this?
So, like you were saying, you typically, a split tax rate really pertains to a community that has an abundance of commercial properties. It's not something we've ever done in Sherborn. It's the decision of the selectmen. I believe, my recommendation, if I can make one, would be to just stay with the single rate.
Okay,
And that would be the first thing you need to vote on.
okay. Does anybody up here want to talk about that or make a motion?
Well, I'll talk about it a little bit, that it's very difficult in Sherborn to operate a small business. I hear from the business owners all the time about all the difficulties they face between regulations, and water and sewer, and parking and whatnot. To hit them with a increase in their taxes on top of everything else just seems the wrong way to go. We want to encourage our businesses. We want to support our local businesses. So I have always voted for a single tax rate for that reason, and want to do that tonight, so I'd move for a single tax rate.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any
Second.
further discussion? All in favor of single tax rate? Okay, single tax rate. Now, Wendy, we have to vote on residential exemptions and commercial exemptions?
Yes, so the residential exemption, again, it typically pertains to communities with several second homes or a high rental property rate, which again, really doesn't pertain to Sherborn. It's an exemption for living in town and not, renting out your property. So again, I don't think it's anything that particularly pertains to Sherborn, and we've always voted it, or the selectmen have always voted for no residential exemption.
Do we have to make an affirmative vote, or I would assume you need an affirmative vote to adopt it?
See, I don't remember ever voting on this before, but
I don't
maybe we
know.
have.
We didn't vote on this last.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if you take no action, there is no
So
residential
every
exemption.
year, this is in the classification presentation, and essentially that's what you're voting on. I was just trying to give you a little more clarification, because there's three steps and three things that you need to vote on. One is residential exemption, the split tax rate, and small commercial exemption.
Okay.
Well, I think we're saying is, if we take no further votes, then there's no residential exemption. But if you need a vote, then I'd move that we not,
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, you can vote,
Take no action.
yeah,
No
just
action.
take no action,
yes, I'd move to take no action on the last two items.
yeah.
Because we've never done it before, and those are basically for the Cape, Nantucket has,
Yeah,
that kind of thing, where there are
Yeah.
vacation homes, and people from all over the United States have homes, a place like Nantucket.
yeah,
We want to
Got it.
have a residential exemption.
yes.
All right, good. All right, so Paul's made a motion. We have a second on Paul's motion. Take no action. Okay, all in favor of that? Thank you. Now, we need to go sign.
Yes, I have the, this is the
Bringing it?
LA5, and our Bureau of Accounts rep said you can sign in the white area.
Just all of us sign?
All of you sign, yeah.
I'll bring it back up to the table.
So Wendy, I wasn't here for the other hearings on this, but I understand with new growth and everything else, the tax rate is going down, right? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
How much is it going
From
down?
$20.46 down to $19.30.
Wow.
Yep. And that had to do with $300,000 worth of growth. It had to do with an increase in value. I believe, Sharon, there was, is it free cash that offsets the tax rate? There was some fund.
Oh, 160,000.
Yeah, so in addition, there was
Was applied.
160,000.
Reduce it, yep.
So, and we're about 800,000 away from our maximum levy capacity.
So congratulations to everybody, the financial team, the
Thank you,
advisory, town meeting, all the departments
thank you.
for not spending every dime that they could have.
Yeah.
It's a good year for the town.
Okay, so I think this concludes, if one of you want to make I don't know if you have to make a motion to close the hearing, or,
You don't, but I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
Okay, all in favor of closing the hearing? Aye. Wendy, thanks very much. I know you've done extra duty here with this, so we really appreciate it.
oh, it's my pleasure.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
so now, we've kind of completed all our business except our executive session and a library board of trustees appointment that's not scheduled until 8:30, so I don't know how we got in this pickle, but we did.
Why don't we agree to come back into public session to do the library thing?
8:30.
Well,
That's
at
an hour and a
8:30,
half
that's an
away.
hour and a half away is the problem.
Push it to next.
I
Is there a
think,
reason why we have to wait for the appointment?
what do we have to do? What?
Library
It's a
people
dual
have to be
vote.
here.
Yeah, the library people
They
have to
have
be
to
here
vote
to
it?
vote
Yes.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
but they have to post a meeting under the open meeting law, they have to gather, it's a lot of procedure, you're just gonna. put it
And this
on-
wasn't a scheduled hearing, this is just a time slot on an agenda.
Right, and I think what happened was because the agenda got amended,
Yeah,
there was like 30 minutes there
nothing,
of nothing, and that's what threw us into chaos.
okay.
Well, it was that wonderful presentation on the general plan that was gonna be the featured event for tonight.
Okay. Well, I think John's point was we saw his presentation
We
last
thought we had
last week,
enough
and
information.
he's a busy guy. John does a ton of stuff for the town. He's probably one of the busiest, board members, board chairs we've got in town, particularly the past couple of years. And he and his committee, planning board, and as well as the housing committee have really done yeoman's work on the plan on our housing over the past year plus.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and there's a bunch of, Neil Kessler, lots of people who have stepped forward to really take a concerted effort to improve the town in that respect, which is something that, we always have needed, but it finally seemed to have coalesced a real group that's focused on it, so that's great. But I didn't feel like if we didn't need John and he had something else to do, I thought it was the right thing to do to just tell him to, that he didn't need to stick around for his presentation.
I just went to the town calendar, and the Library Board of Trustees did post a meeting for 8:30 tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
So we can
Well, that's what I'm
try and get
saying.
a hold of them and see if they want to move it to the 11th.
They need a whole quorum to get here.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to stick around for an hour and a half to vote in a new library trustee. That's not, the town's, well-served by the library trustees now, and we can fill that slot as soon as we can fill it, but, so let's, if we're going to adjourn to executive session, we can do that now.
It's the very last document.
Yeah, and Diane, apologize to the trustees, it's just it's a scheduling glitch, I think, in terms of how this agenda was set up. Diane, maybe we can get them on our next
the
agenda.
11th.
Early
Right.
on, I thought it was the 10th.
The 10th, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep saying
I
that.
got this, but I gotta read the motion, and Diane, I'm sure gave it to me, and I've
It's in your packet.
lost it. I'm
Right
sure
at
it
the
is.
back.
I'm sure it is, but I shuffled all the pages.
Give them that one.
Thank you. Oh, that's it? That's all it is? There's no other motion? Okay.
Just the top thing at the top of the page.
All right, I'll move to go into executive session, declaring that an executive session is necessary to conduct contract negotiations concerning non-union personnel. Sean Colleen, CM&D Director and Facilities Manager. The board will not return to open session. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second?
Second, Mr. Yan. We'll now have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis.
Votes aye.
Mr. Yan.
Aye.
Mr. Colleen. Abstain, and Mr. Jaimo is aye. Okay, great. By a vote of 3-0, the open session is now closed. We will not be returning to open session. We are now in executive session.